Despite its name, Fang was an ordinary small town in a northern province of Chiang Mai, situated on the banks of a river. It made a convenient stopover for river traders and passengers throughout most of the year. A few barges, rafts, and sometimes even a large sailboat could usually be found moored at Fang. But all that was long ago, before the creation of the Trial of Champions. Now, once a year, the river is crammed with boats as people arrive from hundreds of miles around, hoping to witness the breaking of an ancient tradition and see a victor in the Trial of Champions. On the 1st of May each year, warriors and heroes come to Fang to face the test of their lives. Survival is unlikely, yet many take the risk, for the prize is great. A purse of 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever. But to become champion is no easy task. Some years ago, a powerful baron of Fang called Sukhumvit decided to bring attention to his town by creating the ultimate contest. With the help of the townspeople, he constructed a labyrinth deep in the hillside behind Fang, from which there was only one exit. The labyrinth was filled with all kinds of deadly tricks and traps and loathsome monsters. Sukhumvit had designed it in meticulous detail, so that anybody hoping to face its challenge would have to use their wits as well as weapon skill. When he was finally satisfied that all was complete, he put his labyrinth to the test. He picked 10 of his finest guards, and fully armed, they marched into the labyrinth. They were never seen again. The tale of the ill-fated guards soon spread throughout the land, and it was then that Sukhumvit announced the first Trial of Champions. Messengers and news sheets carried his challenge, 10,000 gold pieces and freedom of Chiang Mai forever to any person surviving the perils of the labyrinth of Fang. The first year, 17 brave warriors attempted the walk, as it later became known. Not one reappeared. As the years passed and the Trial of Champions continued, it attracted more and more challengers and spectators. Fang prospered and would prepare itself months in advance for the spectacle it hosted each May. The town would be decorated, tents erected, dining halls built, musicians, dancers, fire-eaters, illusionists, and every sort of entertainer hired, and entries registered from hopeful individuals intent on making the walk. The last week of April found the people of Fang and its visitors in wild celebration. Everybody sang, danced, and laughed until the day broke on the 1st of May, when the town thronged to the gates of the labyrinth to watch the first challenger of the year step forward to face the Trial of Champions. Having seen one of Sukhumvit's challenges nailed to a tree, you decide that this year you will attempt the walk. For the last 5 years you have been attracted to it not for the rewards, but for the simple fact that nobody has ever yet emerged victorious from the labyrinth. You intend to make this the year in which a champion is crowned. Gathering up a few belongings, you set off immediately. 2 days' walk takes you west to the coast, where you enter the cursed port Black Sand. Wasting no time in that city of thieves, you buy your passage on a small boat sailing north to where the river Coke meets the sea, and from there you raft upriver for 4 days, until finally you arrive in Fang. The trial begins in 3 days' time, and the town is in an almost hysterical mood of excitement. You register your entry with the officials and are given a violet scarf to tie around your arm, informing everyone of your status. For 3 days you enjoy Fang's greatest hospitality. and are treated like a demigod. During the long merriment, you almost forget your purpose in Fang, but the evening before the trial, the magnitude of the task ahead begins to dominate your thoughts. Later, you are taken to a special guest house and are shown your room. There is a splendid 4-poster bed with satin sheets to help you rest, but there is little time left for sleep. Just before dawn, a trumpet call awakens you from vivid dreams of flaming pits and giant black spiders. Minutes later, there is a knock on your door, and a man's voice rings out saying, "Your challenge begins soon. Please be ready to leave in 10 minutes. You climb out of bed, walk over to the window and open the shutters. Already people are thronging the streets, moving quietly through the morning mist. Spectators, no doubt on their way to the labyrinth, hoping to find good vantage points from which to watch the competitors. Walking over to a wooden table on which your trusty sword and shield lie, you pick them up and cut the air with a mighty sweep, wondering which beasts your sword's sharp edge may soon have to meet. You open the door into the corridor, and a small man greets you with a low bow as you emerge from your bedroom. "Please follow me," he says. He turns to his left and walks quickly towards the stairs at the end of the corridor. Walking through a parting in the crowds, you see Baron Succumbit himself, standing by the entrance waiting to greet the contender in the trial of champions. You count 5 others standing proudly in line, their violet scarves displayed for all to see. There are 2 bare-chested barbarians dressed in furs. They stand completely motionless, legs straight and slightly apart, arms thrust forward to rest on the hilts of their long, double-headed battle axes. A sleek elven woman with golden hair and feline green eyes is adjusting the crossbelt of daggers wrapped around her leather tunic. Of the 2 remaining men, one is covered from head to foot in iron plate armor, with a plumed helmet and a crested shield. The other is cloaked in black robes, only his dark eyes showing between the swarms of his black-faced scars. Long knives, a wire garrote, and other silent death weapons hang from his belt. The 5 contenders acknowledge your arrival with almost imperceptible nods of the head, and you turn to face the exultant crowd for the last time. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd as Baron Succumbit steps forward, holding 6 bamboo sticks. You draw one from his outstretched hand, and you read the word, 5th. Then the trial begins. The knight is first. He salutes the crowd before disappearing into the tunnel, and is followed half an hour later by the elf. Next goes a barbarian, and then the dark assassin. Next, it's your turn. But before embarking on your adventure, we must first determine your own strengths and weaknesses. You have in your possession a sword, a shield, and a backpack for carrying provisions for the trip. You have been preparing for your quest by training yourself in swordplay and exercising vigorously. To see how effective your preparations have been, dice will be rolled to determine your skill, stamina, and luck scores. Or, if you wish to begin your adventure immediately, you can choose between 3 ready-made adventurers. First, we'll roll for your initial level of skill. This reflects your sword skill and fighting expertise, and will be determined by rolling 1 die and adding 6. Next, we'll roll for your initial stamina, which represents your strength. So the higher your stamina score, the longer you will survive. This will be determined by rolling 2 dice and adding 12. Next, we'll roll for your initial luck, which represents how lucky an adventurer you are. Luck and magic are facts of life in the fantasy world you're about to explore. This is determined by rolling 1 die and adding 6. You may also take a magical potion with you to aid you on your quest. Each bottle of potion contains 2 measures, so can be used twice during an adventure. You can choose from a potion of skill that restores your skill points to their initial amount, a potion of strength that restores your stamina points to their initial amount, or a potion of fortune that not only restores your luck points to their initial amount, but will also increase your initial luck score by 1 each time it's used. Lastly, before you begin your quest, you are given enough provisions for 10 meals. When you eat a meal, your stamina score will increase by 4 points. But don't forget, your stamina can never exceed the initial amounts you've just set. You have a long way to go, so use your provisions wisely. During your adventure, you'll enter into combat a number of times. And the further you go, the tougher your opponents will be. Combat takes place over several rounds, and your attack strength is based on yours and your enemy's skill scores. For each round of battle, we'll roll 2 dice for you and 2 for your opponent, adding the results to your skill scores. These are your respective attack strengths. Whoever's attack strength is the highest wins that round of combat. If you both had the same attack strength in a round, then it will be a tie. In some battles, you can take an opportunity to escape. But beware. If you do run away, your opponent will automatically score 1 hit on you as you flee, costing you 2 stamina points. So be sure you have enough. Such is the price of cowardice. You are playing using the new battle system, where the battle takes place over 3 rounds. Your sheer battle-hardened nature will mean you'll always win the battle after the 3 rounds, but every round you lose will cost you 2 stamina points. So be careful. Losing all your stamina will still be fatal. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. You are playing using the traditional battle system from the original Deathtrap Dungeon book. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. After each battle round, you'll be able to test your luck. By using luck in battles, you can either score a more serious wound on your opponent or minimize the effects of a wound scored on you. If you test your luck after you have just wounded your opponent, we'll roll 2 dice, and if the total is the same or less than your current luck score, you will have been lucky and will take an extra 2 points from your opponent's stamina. But if the roll is greater, then the damage to your opponent will be halved. If your opponent has just inflicted a 2 stamina wound on you, a lucky roll will halve that damage, but an unlucky roll will take an additional stamina point. One last thing. Testing your luck has a cost. Each time you test your luck score will be reduced by 1 point. You are playing using the new. Now it is your turn to salute the crowd. Holding your violet scarf aloft, you take one final deep breath of cool, fresh air before turning to pass between a stone-pillared gateway into Sukhumvit's corridors of power to face unknown perils on the walk through the mighty Baron's Deathtrap Dungeon. The clamour of the excited spectators gradually fades behind you as you venture deep into the gloom of the cavern. Large crystals hang from the tunnel roof at 20-metre intervals, radiating just enough soft light for you to see your way. As your eyes gradually become accustomed to the near darkness, you begin to see movement all around. Spiders and beetles crawling up and down the chiseled walls disappear quickly into cracks and crevices as they sense your approach. Rats and mice scurry along the floor ahead of you. Droplets of water drip into small pools with an eerie plopping sound which echoes down the tunnel. The air is cold, moist, and dank. After walking slowly along the tunnel for about 5 minutes, you arrive at a stone table standing against the wall to your left. On it, there are 6 boxes, one of which has your name painted on its lid. The lid of the box lifts off easily, and inside you find 2 gold pieces and a note written on a small piece of parchment addressed to you. After placing the gold in your pocket, you read the message, which says, "Well done. At least you had the sense to stop and take advantage of the token aid given to you. Now I can advise you that you will need to find and use several items if you hope to pass triumphantly through my Deathtrap Dungeon. Signed, Sukhumvit." Memorizing the advice on the note, you tear it into tiny pieces and continue north along the tunnel, where you come to a junction. A white arrow painted on one wall points west. On the floor you can see wet footprints made by those who entered before you. It's hard to be sure, but it looks as though 3 of them followed the direction of the arrow, while one decided to go east. Ahead, you can see a large obstruction on the tunnel floor. Although it is too dark to make out exactly what it is, the wet, eastbound footprints you have been following carry on towards the obstruction. You see that the obstruction is a large, brown, boulder-like object. You touch it with your hand and are surprised to find that it is soft and spongy. Your sword easily pierces the thin outer casing of the giant spore ball. A thick brown cloud of spores bursts out of the ball and envelops you. Some of the spores stick to your skin and start to itch terribly. You lose 2 stamina points as great lumps come up on your face and arms, and your skin feels as if it is on fire. Frantically scratching your itching lumps, you step over the now deflated spore ball. Pressing on east, you turn left, which heads north for as far as you can see. The footprints you are following start to peter out as the tunnel becomes gradually drier. Soon you are beyond the dripping roof and the pools on the floor. You notice the air becoming hotter, and you find yourself panting even though you are walking quite slowly. In a small recess on the left-hand wall, you see a section of bamboo standing on its end. Lifting it down, you see it is filled with a clear liquid. Your throat is painfully dry, and you feel a little dizzy from the heat in the tunnel. The water in the bamboo pipe is welcomely refreshing and adds 1 stamina point. It also contains a magical solution which will enable you to be exposed to melting point temperatures without harm. Discarding the bamboo, you start off north again, in good spirits. You find yourself dripping with sweat as the temperature continues to rise. As you struggle on, the heat intensifies until it becomes so unbearable that you feel yourself begin to pass out. Although the temperature in the tunnel is higher than you could normally tolerate, the liquid from the bamboo pipe keeps you alive, and mercifully, after a few moments, the temperature drops rapidly and soon feels almost cool again. On the left-hand side of the tunnel is a closed door. It has a small iron plate in it, which looks like it might slide open. The small plate slides open easily, and you find yourself peering into a room with a deep pit in the floor behind the door. On the opposite wall, there is a coil of rope hanging on one of 2 iron hooks. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns sharply to the left. You turn a corner and almost bump straight into 2 fierce-looking orcs, armed with morning stars and wearing leather armor. You are totally unprepared for them and struggle to ready your weapons. The orcs roar. and as you draw your sword, one of them swings its morning star at you, which, thankfully, crashes into your shield, bouncing off harmlessly. The tunnel is too narrow for both of them to attack you at once, so you fight them, one at a time. The orc is strong but slow, and you're able to strike hard with your sword. Your shield protects you from the orc's frenzied attack, while you're able to hack at its leg. You raise your sword to parry the attack, and are able to kick the orc hard in the stomach. The first orc slumps lifeless to the floor, so you turn your attention to the other. The orc is strong but slow, and you're able to strike hard with your sword. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. Your shield protects you from the orc's frenzied attack, while you're able to hack at its leg. Inside one of the orc's pockets, you find one gold piece and a hollow wooden tube. You put your findings in your backpack and set off west. As you walk along, droplets of water again start falling from the tunnel's ceiling. Heading west, you see wet footprints made by the same boots that you followed earlier. They lead to a closed iron door in the right-hand wall of the tunnel, but do not seem to go any further. The door opens into a large chamber, where you are shocked to see one of your rivals, who has obviously met a sudden gory death. It is one of the barbarians, and he is impaled on several long iron spikes that are fixed to a frame which has sprung out of the floor. A lot of debris litters the floor, concealing a hidden tripwire which he must have stepped on, releasing the spiked frame. In the far wall is an alcove, in which you can see a silver goblet standing on a small wooden table. The passage soon leads to a junction, where you notice more footprints on the floor, possibly as many as 3 pairs, heading north from the south passage. You decide to follow them to where the passage opens out into a wide cavern, which is darker but much drier. Ahead, you see the footprints gradually fade, then disappear. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand two giant stuffed, bird-like creatures. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb. Some rope would have been ideal for this task, but alas, you don't have any. So slowly and carefully, you begin to climb the idol. You're about to grab hold of its large ear when suddenly your foot slips. We'll need to check how lucky you are. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you have been lucky. But if the number rolled is higher than your current luck score, you have been unlucky. You just managed to grab the idol's earlobe and regain your footing. You scramble over its face and sit down on the bridge of its nose. You draw your sword and consider which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the emerald eye of the idol, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the 2 stuffed birds taking flight. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians, one at a time, but your skill is reduced by 3 during this combat because of your restricted position.
You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes.
The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor. So you ready yourself to take on the second.
You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prize out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight. Hoping that it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. You lower yourself carefully down the idol, and wasting no more time in the cavern, run forward to the tunnel in the northern wall. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but hear nothing.
You enter a room which is small and completely empty. As soon as you are inside, the door slams shut behind you. Suddenly a voice booms out of nowhere, shouting, "Welcome to Deathtrap Dungeon, the ingenious killer labyrinth of my master. Adventurer, I trust you will pay your respects to my master by shouting out his name." You take a deep breath and shout, "Hail Succumvit!" Once again, the mysterious voice calls out. Only this time its tone is full of contempt and derision. "So, we have a sniveling weed in our midst, do we?" sneers the voice. "My master has a special gift for you, loathsome creep." Suddenly water starts pouring into the room through a hole in the ceiling. It soon rises above your ankles, and there is no apparent way of escape. You wade back to the door. It is firmly locked, but in desperation you try ramming it with your shoulder. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you have been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. The door cannot withstand the furious battering you are giving it. The center panel cracks and splinters, enabling you to kick a hole in it large enough for you to squeeze through. Soaked, but happy to have survived your ordeal, you set off north again. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, you see a thin shaft of blue light streaming down from the ceiling to the floor. It sparkles and shimmers, and you can see images of laughing faces in the light. You come to an arched doorway set in the right-hand wall of the tunnel. The heavy stone door is closed, but there is an iron latch and a round handle. Lifting the latch and pushing the heavy stone door open, you find yourself in a large cabin. The light is dim and murky, but as your eyes begin to adjust, you see that the walls are covered in green algae and running with moisture. The floor is strewn with straw. The atmosphere is warm, damp, and fetid, and a soft humming sound fills the air. You step gingerly through the straw towards a corner of the cabin where there appears to be a shallow pit. Peering warily into the pit, you are disgusted to see a mass of pale, writhing worms, some as much as 1/2 meter long. Nauseated, you are about to turn away when you notice that their undulating bodies are swarming around a dagger, its point held fast in a crack in the pit floor. The hilt is cased in black leather, studded with opals, and the blade is fashioned from a strange, reddish-black burnished metal you have never seen before. You long to touch the dagger, but this would mean plunging your hand in among the writhing worm. Unable to face the thought of the touch of the writhing worms, you leave the cabin and continue north. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you see a narrow passage disappearing into the dim distance. Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed. The noise grows louder, and suddenly you realize that the wall on your right is starting to collapse. Terrified, you watch as a large, hideous, worm-like creature with a gaping mouth and powerful mandibles slithers through a hole in the wall. Its great jaws continue to crunch the rock as it turns its head slowly from side to side, feeling the cool air in the tunnel. It appears to be totally blind, but seems to know of your presence, perhaps sensing the heat of your body. It starts to slither towards you with its mandibles wide apart to attack. You walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark pit. The passage continues east on the other side of the pit. You think you could probably jump over the pit, but you're not sure. There is a rope hanging down from the ceiling over the center of the pit. Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. However, in the dim light, you do not notice that someone has cut the rope almost in two, just a little way above the section you are holding. As you swing out across the pit, it suddenly breaks, and you scream with fear as you plunge headlong to the depths below. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall, only costing you 1 skill point and 2 stamina points. It could have been much worse. The darkness is almost pitch black at the bottom of the pit, and you crawl along the floor, groping in front of you. Suddenly your hand touches something cold, hard and smooth. The object is small and round, but you cannot figure out what it is. You place it in your backpack, hoping to see what it is once you are out of the pit. You continue to crawl forward and soon reach the pit wall. It's too smooth to climb, and you have to cut hand and toe holds in it with your sword. This takes a long time, but finally you climb out of the pit on the east side. You immediately check out the object in your backpack and discover that you have found an orb of blood-red ruby. You are absolutely delighted and head off east in high spirits, whistling softly. The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. The door opens into a large candlelit room filled with incredibly lifelike statues of knights and warriors. A white-haired old man dressed in tattered rags jumps out from behind one of the statues and starts to giggle. Though he looks like a fool, the sparkle in his eyes makes you think there is more to him. In a high-pitched voice, he says, "Oh, good! Another stone for my garden. I'm glad you have come to join your friends. Now, I'm a fair man, so I'll ask you a question. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go free. But if your answer is wrong, I'll turn you to stone." He starts to chuckle again, obviously pleased with your arrival. The old man points at one of the statues, and you recognize it immediately. It is the knight who started the trial of champions. The agonized look on his face locked in stone for eternity. The old man smiles, saying, This man weighs 100 pounds plus half his weight. How much does he weigh? What will you answer? Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says quietly, "Wrong." And before you can do anything else, he mumbles a few strange words into the air. You feel your muscles harden and your skin go taut. You start to panic, but there is nothing you can do to stop the petrification of your body. Your adventure ends here.